המדינה עוז ארץ החיים צשווים, schon. Und diese hier משהו בעניין כמו בסניגש. לא יהיו עובדים ולספר לשם, וכי שני כלובים עובדים.
I'm Sandy Eller for VIN News in Bloomingburg, New York. Located just off the Quickway at exit 116 and 74 miles from Times Square, Bloomingburg, with an approximate population of 400 residents, isn't the kind of town that normally grabs headlines. With 396 new townhouses being built, complete with kosher kitchens, this small Sullivan County town is facing the influx of hundreds of new residents. These days, this quiet little town is anything but quiet.
Welcome to Chestnut Ridge.
So what brought you to Bloomingburg in the first place? What made you come here and say, I think I'm putting in a housing development?
So it's interesting. We came to Sullivan County, it's probably 10, 12 years ago. And I had sold a company, and thank God I've been involved in real estate for a lot of years. And I wanted to stop traveling. My company was based in the southern United States, and I wanted to stop traveling. And literally took a string, said, okay, what's within the 80 miles of New York City that makes a lot of sense?
Right around on the map.
And a lot of it was water, a lot of it was Westchester, those were built up. And then we said, wow, the Catskills. And why are the Catskills not booming? They should be booming. Why is it not happening? So just at that time, Eller, who's a billionaire who founded Cablevision, who lives in Liberty, New York, invested $75 million of his own money to create the Bethel Center for Performing Arts. He saw a great future for the Catskill region, and I figured if it's good enough for him, good enough for us. And we started looking at interesting opportunities. This was a fascinating opportunity because you had a small village that had a tremendous need. They needed a new wastewater treatment plant, a new sewer plant, and otherwise they were in a lot of trouble. So what we did is we said, hold it, this is perfect. We can combine a public need with a private desire of development, put them together and solve everybody's problems. So we solved all the problems of the village. We built a $5.2 million wastewater treatment plant that's now completed, and we got to get our development done as well. It was the perfect confluence of public need and private desire, and it really worked out very, very beautifully from that perspective.
But from other perspectives, you can't blame people in the village who are going to look and say, but you're bringing in, you're quadrupling the size of our village with people who want nothing to do with us.
So let's talk about that. It's kind of interesting. When the refrigerator was invented, the people who were delivering ice were really angry. And one can always say, look, let's not have progress, let's not do that, because some people will be upset. I am sympathetic with people who say, this is going to change things. And that's why we went through a 6-year process of approvals. It's not like this wasn't discussed time and time again publicly in open forums. And still, the decision was made that we do meet the standards of zoning, and that is the only thing that should count. Who moves in is not an American question. An American question is, what is the law? And we have complied with the law in every sense of the term. We haven't skipped any step. We've crossed every T, we've dotted every I. In America, that's the final question. Have you complied with the law? What's happening here is that people are now going outside of the law and are trying intimidation and trying things like that. That's not acceptable in America, and that's what we're fighting against.
Did you expect to find the kind of resistance where windows would get broken in town? We were standing outside for 5 minutes and heard lots of colorful language. Were you expecting that when you put all this up?
I think we have to make a distinction between people who live in the village of Bloomingburg and people who are without the village of Bloomingburg. What I did expect were lots of questions. We got lots of questions. People who are within Bloomingburg, with the exception of some of the politicians, but people within Bloomingburg have been welcoming, have been lovely, really some of them are just extraordinary, and have become really good friends. People without Bloomingburg, people from Pine Bush, people from other parts of Mamakating, unfortunately, sadly, a bunch of them Jews, have been horrific. And these are the people who, unfortunately, have no boundaries, no legal boundaries. One could call them almost, and I'm using hyperbole, sort of economic terrorists. And that's really very unfortunate. Those are the people who have given us a lot of trouble. I do admire their relentlessness. I have to say, I admire their hatred. It is so deep and so all-encompassing that they really don't know when to stop. On the other hand, it has taken us through a legal process which is very expensive and very long, but at the end of the day, it buttons up everything we have to the nth degree. And so yes, it's a little rocky in the beginning, but already we see great improvements. And as you can see here in this beautiful environment, they haven't stopped us and they're not going to stop us. And we're going to continue building, we're going to continue to build. Conceptually, there are different ways to build a community. One way is to do it where you appeal to the lowest socioeconomic denominator there is, and you hope that those people come. Another way is to build something of real substance, of real beauty, and say it's a harder road to go, but you're establishing something very, very solid. And that's the derech, that's the
Well, let me ask you a
trip we
question.
took.
There are so many communities that have been built out of town.
Mhm.
Lakewood, Muncie, they started with a yeshiva and people
Right.
moved in and things evolved naturally over time.
Right.
And I can't tell there was no opposition, but you didn't have 396 houses coming in all at once where people say, look what you're doing to our town. You're outvoting us, you're outnumbering us, you want nothing to do with us. Would it have been a better approach to start small, or do you think if you had started small, they would have just cut you off right at the beginning?
You know, you can always, there are different approaches to take. We're not trying to, you know, Muncie evolved sort of organically. What we did is we looked at a need, a housing need, and we said, how do we deal with that critical need? After all, we're builders. So we're builders, we want to sell a lot of houses. So we looked at a need and we said, well, people want to move without being really pioneers. So there's a lot of Jewish infrastructure. So you saw, I think you're probably a little surprised by what you saw, a lot of Jewish infrastructure. And then we said, wow, what kind of people do we want to attract? We want to attract solid people. And that's what we've done. And it's a different approach. It's perhaps a harder approach, certainly a more expensive approach. But as you see when people come here, their jaws drop and they go, wow. And then they say, I can have it for this, for how much? And they're shocked. And it's a lot of fun to see that reaction.
Did
It's
you
really
build
kind of
this
fun.
with any particular demographic in mind?
As you can see, the layout here is very beautiful. We have a lot of space. We have a lot of curves in the roads. There's nothing straight about this. There's nothing angular about it. And we'll take a walk later. You'll see it's so beautifully laid out. We're very, very conscious of children. And we want to have children. We want
Where
them to
are they
have
riding
safety.
bikes?
So there's all, back there, we have 4 multi-acre playgrounds embedded in the community. On that side of the road, where there are 88 units on that side, 308 units on this side. On that side, we have acres, dozens of acres.
Are those going to be townhomes as well, or
Yep,
those are going to be?
same thing.
So this is all 396 of these beautiful attached townhomes.
Correct. And what we've done is even though they're townhomes, we made sure that there's no single building that's more than 5 units. We could have done 11 units, 12 units, 15 units. You won't see that here.
What was
We
the
limited
reason
it to
for
5. There are 3s, 4s, and 5s to give it interest, to make sure there's space, to make sure there's no sense of barracks. You don't get a sense of
Right.
people living on top of each other. Everyone has a backyard. Everyone has a circle porch. Everyone has a front yard. It's really pretty. And then we have these playgrounds, and we're just now designing. 2 of the playgrounds are going to have playground equipment for people who are up to, I think it's from 2 to 5, 0 to 5, and then from 5 to 12. And then 2 of them are just going to be big open fields for kids to play soccer, or baseball, or football, whatever it is. And that's the idea. The idea is to create a very easy to live environment, and affordable, and safe, and country. We spend so much time designing it, and then you'll notice that the entrances may be this way, but there's different elements on top. There's different architectural elements there. There's different colors over here, different architectural elements.
The playground doesn't help when they're going to ride their bike. I'm saying, okay, my grandson's coming out here, he's riding down the road with cars.
Well, he's actually going this way.
I go this way.
He's actually going out here.
You got a
and
playground? It's
right behind us. There's a huge playground right there. But out there is our water system. You can't see, well, you can see it. It's really hard to see.
You can see
That
there.
black
in the
thing
back.
back
That
there.
black thing,
Yeah.
you'd never notice it if I didn't point it out.
No,
we
especially not in the
did-
summer when the trees are...
Oh, then it's invisible. But what we did is we got a specially designed one that was lower than normal, fatter than normal, just to be sure we're environmentally sensitive to the scenery, because it's so beautiful. We want to make sure that you can't be seen.
Okay, power lines are underground.
The power lines are underground, which of course is great because you don't lose power during storms or anything like that. There are no weather
floods,
issues.
snow.
And frankly, from an appearance perspective, it's so pretty. on Shabbos, people walk here all the time. It's a really nice Shabbos walk.
Must also be fascinating Shabbos to Shabbos, just seeing the new things coming up, everything evolving.
It is very exciting when you
Yes.
see it.
All right. I'll bring you.
There's so much write-up about what's going on, some of it true, some of it not true. Has anyone from the bloggers to the commentators actually come out here and see for themselves what the community is about before they wrote a piece?
That's a great question. Most bloggers, they write with tremendous authority about something they know nothing about. It'd be great to have them come here and see it, and then I think they'd have a lot more to write about.
At the very, very beginning, when all this started, I want to put this all on the table.
Sure.
People started talking about how originally the plan came in, it wasn't proposed by you. Dwayne Roy, I believe, brought the plan up, and for whatever reason, I know there's no documentation that ever says 125 houses.
That's correct.
That number got out there. What was the reason that you didn't come at the beginning yourself and say, hi, I'm Shalom Lamm, I'm a developer, I want to build housing here?
Oh, this happens all the time. I'm sure I can find thousands of examples. And it's a perfectly logical thing where somebody uses a local person who's familiar with the ins and outs of the community. It's a political process, and it's both a legal and a political process. And you want to put your best foot forward. He was a person who both was a developer locally, knew the system, knew the people, knew the laws, and had relationships. And so we hired him to start that process. And he did a credible job. And you're right, there's not a single sheet of paper that says 125 units. It's a rumor that's gotten currency, but there's not an ounce of truth to it. And I will also say that I can't think of a single major development ever that hasn't started with a certain concept, and as you go through the process, it gets refined, it
The
gets
whole thing
improved,
evolves.
it evolves. You get people who want certain things, and you try to accommodate a local community, you try to accommodate the local planning board, so things evolve. That's a normal part of the process that happens every single time in every single development. Although when we do it, it's become an evil thing. But it's not true, because the fact is every single development has that metamorphosis, has that process. We've done the same thing as everyone else has done.
So this was never about, I can't come in here with a yarmulke because they see me, they're going to say no.
Oh no, and I can prove it, because we had many other developments where I felt I needed to be the face of it, where I was front and center. I was front and center in Forestburg. I was front and center even in Mammocating on a Seven Peaks project. So no, I can actually prove factually that that's not the case.
At the end of the day, does this strike you as the issue here is density or religion?
It can't be density, because as you walk down Main Street, you see that there are many, many, many projects that are much more dense than us. And in fact, we are exactly within the zoning. It cannot possibly or logically be density. That only leaves one other option. And as you saw yourself standing on the corner and the nice waves that you got with missing a couple digits, you could see that there people outside of Bloomingburg, I have to emphasize that, have found a great cause, and a great cause to go after. And whenever I call them haters, the blogs light up that I'm a terrible person for calling them haters. But guess what? I call it as I see it.
Go to the for sale signs, then
I think one of the nice things about development is it creates a market. It creates a dynamic. There are a lot of people who've wanted to move for years, but there has been not an active market here. There hasn't been an engine of growth. There hasn't been an engine of economic activity. We're providing that engine. So if people say, hey, I would like to move to Florida, but I've not been able to sell my house for the last 5 years because Bloomingburg's been on the decline, but now it's on this big uptick, let me cash out. That's great. That's part of the wonderful things about economic activity. So I don't hold a grudge against anyone. Speak with them. They're fine, good people. And if they find an opportunity to cash out while other people are moving in, that's the dynamic, that's the give and take of a market. I think it's great. A gentleman on this block was getting an order of thousands and thousands of pounds of wood chips for winter, right? You may have heard the story. So these guys came out, I didn't ask anybody, came out, they saw there was going to be a big schlep, they walked into the truck,
Said it was
they did the whole
5,000
thing.
pounds.
5,000 pounds, they did the whole thing in no time. Everybody just did it just to be neighbors. That's what's really going on. That's the story, what's really going on. the bloggers who don't know what they're talking about have you think something else
And that's a
entirely.
story that the outsiders and the local village doesn't want getting out, because
That's right.
it's going to show that
It's going
there
to show
can be harmony
actually
here.
good people, people who want to get along, no one's chasing anyone out, who wants to know. We really have a vision here to be great. Now, I'll give you an example, another example. Right before Sukkot. So what did we do? We sent out a postcard to every single person in the village explaining what Sukkot is and wishing everybody a good holiday season. Just so people should know what's a Sukkah, what's a Lulav
What are
and
these
Esrog,
random things
what are
popping up
what are
all
these things?
over?
So to
People-
know what that is, to know what the explanation is, and at the same time to wish them a good holiday season. And we did it, and people enjoyed it and loved it. We just want to be good neighbors.
You know, the things with the sewer plant have to be corrected. There were some issues that happened pertaining to the sidewalks not being permission to do the sidewalks on the village's part, something I wasn't aware of, but they're trying to do it now with the county. A lot of people are against that because it's in the county right away, which is understandable. Either somehow the county should do it and then it stays, you know, you can't have a separate developer putting in sidewalks and then maintaining them on county property. That's a big no-no. And that has to be worked out. That's in the process now. The water situation, the wells and everything was sanitized. You need Department of Health approvals, certificates and stuff that's ready so that people can start moving in. Items at the sewer plant, once they're completed and everything, again, the flow can come into the new plant that the developer built. You know, I'm just at a point where I need cooperation. It's as simple as that. You know, there's a lot of people that owe taxes. We sent out letters because our next half of the year is due the end of the month of December, and we're starting to get, you know, back taxes in. You know, people don't understand. You know, you need the tax monies to run your government. I walked in with a surplus, and I've been tapping it, and sooner or later, it's not going to be any surplus sitting in the account. I need my tax monies in. It's a lot. You know, people see flowers went up on Main Street. Yes, I bought mums that everybody was selling for $10 for $2.55.
And you put them in yourself.
Yeah.
And you hung flags, and you...
And I hung the flags on Main Street with one of my trustees. You know, the two of us do everything. And, you know, I'm not afraid to go and get cold patch and patch holes in the road, because it's either you patch it or you're going to pay the insurance company for a tire and rim damage to somebody's car.
So this is really all about making Bloomingburg a better place for all
Everybody.
residents, no matter who they are.
Everybody. I am not against any particular race, color, creed. It's just, I want it to be a nice village like it was 8 years ago. You know, if the population increases, well, yes, there might have to be another traffic light, you know, stuff like that. It might come to the point where if the village isn't dissolved and we have the tax break base coming in, it might be a situation where I have to hire like a highwayman, you know, somebody to work on the supervision, do repair work, make sure the sidewalks are clean. I hired a landscaper to clear one side of Main Street because it was all overgrown. I want it to be a nice village. Instead of going in at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and staying there until 2 to 4 in the afternoon, I'd like to just go in at 9 and stay until 12 or 1. You know, the salary is ridiculous. Everybody started complaining when I went from an $1,800 old budget. I put $10,000 in for a salary. Well, if you took 40 hours plus a week, you're working for nothing.
You think the lawyers are hindering the progression of the village? Because
It's
you
hard.
told me before you would sit down with Mr. Lamm and maybe there would be
Yeah,
some...
it's a hard situation because, like, I went on property, okay? I didn't consider myself trespassing. I went on property just to see what was going on. I see a well rig drilling, and I get charged with trespassing. I mean, I did muns, and there was a barrel, half barrel, and it was next to the sidewalk. And I didn't realize it wasn't village property. It belonged to Hickory Court. I put a mum in it. You know, I took all the weeds out, put them up. I wanted it to look nice.
Who called the police on you that you got
Nobody
charged?
called police. I just got told that I trespassed on the developers' properties. You know, they were doing work on 78 Main Street where the stores are. Got nothing against that, but what are you doing? I mean, you know, you got permits, fine and dandy. I would like to see what's going on, right? I'm not there to stop you or anything like that. And I got told I was trespassing, you know. I can't go into the new development. Security stops me and tells me to turn around. That doesn't sit right. I mean, come on. I want to see how it's getting built, what's going on, so that I can answer if somebody questions me. I keep a daily log of whatever I do, okay? Whether it's going up to Mammocating to pick up coal patch, going down to Home Depot, going to Staples because the clerk needs ink or paper. I don't care. It's all written down. Every phone call that comes in that matters, you know, asks for me, I jot down a little something. You know, I believe in taking everything so that if something's said, you could always go back and say, well, on this date, this is what went on. You had 50 plus people living in the village, you know, and now you might have 15. You know, it's hard, you know.
I saw a voter registration card for one person who was, for the general election, he got this, it was dated November 20th, I believe, that he was registered to vote here, and his vote was challenged when we had the election.
I didn't challenge anything.
No, not you personally.
Yeah.
But when he was one of the people whose vote was challenged, saying he didn't live here, well, if he didn't live here, why does he have a card from Board of Elections saying that he's living here and voting here? You know, it's
That's
tough.
out of my hands, you know. This is all illegal.
Let me ask you a final question. We've been here for a couple of hours. We have been cursed at, rude gestures have been made at us, a lot of obscenities shouted. Do you think that people would have the same reaction if there were 396 houses being built for Amish people?
No clue. No clue. I don't have that attitude. I mean, the gentlemen are walking on Main Street. As I drive by, I give them a hi. They wave back.
That's the way it should be.
I smile. They'll smile back. You know, it's just that people have to come to the understanding that it's going to happen, and you're going to have to live with it.
And now the goal is how do we all live together and respect each other? That's
It's the whole thing. You know, the biggest thing is cooperation. Give the village cooperation, give us what we need, and we could proceed, you know. I mean, an ideal thing, the flag on the flagpole over there, everybody thinks it's village property. It's not. It belongs to the person who owns the land that deli's on. I approached him to put a flag up. I approached him to put the mums in, circled that. You know, he said yes. He doesn't own it. He rents. I would love to have the scouts do a new tree. I would take the tree down on the weekend. And, you know, there's enough people that want to help. You know, get a donation for the scouts and have them do a tree planting. It's community service.
What would be your final, you know, statement to the people watching this who have all these misconceptions for right or wrong over the last 2 years about the village? What would you like to tell the public?
What's all I'm looking to do is enforce New York State codes. That's it. And have it come back to being a nice little village. I love when you go through a village and it has all those little banners hanging. That makes it, you know, it seems like it's a home. Not just, you know, a truck. That's what I would like. You know, more retailing, where, you know, you'll have people come for an old-fashioned candy store, you know, or somebody opens up something that sells just hot sauces or something like that. I'm just talking off
Small
my
town
head.
America.
Yeah, you know, make it so that it's a destination.
Would you like to see Governor Cuomo do a little mediating, if that's what it takes?
Definitely, if it's going to help, you know, if the village dissolves, it becomes part of the town of Mammokin. And it's a whole different situation then. But if it doesn't dissolve, if the annexation of the land that's being developed doesn't go back to the town of Mammokin, that's all the village. So, you know, you have to deal with it.
For the people watching this, what message would you like to give for the people
Who's watching
that
this?
are still not understanding maybe or grasping the situation, or maybe they're going to feel this was a paid advertisement when we came out on our own, when there's no agenda here? What would you like to tell those people?
It's very, very easy to destroy. It takes much more effort to build, and we're building. We're putting in enormous effort, enormous investment, enormous emotional investment, and we have a vision for things that are good. So be part of the positive force, be part of that which is good, and come see us. Welcome, enjoy our pizza, it's delicious.